Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Thomas. Today we're back here with Extra History. Today, we're here with starting a new series. It's the Buddhist expansion. First up, it's part 1 with Siddhartha and, ancient Buddhism. So we're about to see the start of Buddhism begin. So, shall we see where this whole religion start? So be sure to subscribe for more. Hope you enjoy. Let's go.
Up from hell the demons came, clawing onto the earth realm at the call of their god. Some are blue-skinned and tusked, carrying war clubs, while others have fanged mouths in their bellies, breathe fire, or swing dismembered skeletons. Some use serpents as weapons, or have snakes emerging from their mouths. They swarm across the earth at the behest of Mara, the one who delights in destruction, god of desire, and the circle of death and rebirth. He marshals the demons mounted on his great war elephant, with weapons and fireballs in each of his 6 hands. For Mara has heard that a mortal is about to discover the eightfold secret, the thing that can stop the wheel of the cosmos, the cycle of death and rebirth that keeps humans in torment. So he sends his uncountable furies to swarm toward a tree in a land called India, and at the man sitting serenely below it.
Here we go.
Thanks so much to Skillshare for helping to support today's historic tale.
Let's go.
By the numbers, Buddhism isn't one of Earth's largest religions. At around 500 million adherents, it comes in a distant 4th place behind Christianity, Islam, and Hinduism, whose populations number in the billions. Yet Buddhism is all around us. It's part of our everyday lives, from inspiring some of our favorite sci-fi franchises, to developing martial arts that millions practice, to being at the center of meditation apps that you might use to fall asleep. It's a tradition with a global reach, whose concepts and philosophies have influenced billions, whether or not they subscribe to it. Seriously, once you start looking, you can see it's all around us. Despite this, Buddhism is often misunderstood, partially because in its history, it has been many things. A flexible tradition, it alters and fuses with every culture it encounters, meaning that its practice changed significantly as it radiated out from the Indian core. In fact, images of the Buddha himself have changed as well, so the Buddha of India can look quite different from that of Japan or China. But as Buddhists...
Speaking of faces, didn't South Park have like a episode arc where they had to reveal the face of Buddha? It was either that or something else. I don't remember. I'm not even sure what season. If you guys watch South Park, if you guys know that episode, can you let me know? I remember it from a South Park guide, but other than that, not much. I don't know. Could have been from the 200th episode where the celebrities were kind of fighting back. I don't know. Let me know. If you guys know the episode, I really could use the help. Anyway, moving along.
Tell it. It all began in what is now southern Nepal. 6th century BCE. The day she became pregnant, the queen dreamed of a white elephant with 6 tusks entering her side. It's a sign. One of many that the child in her womb is special. Even so, the birth is nothing like she expects. She doesn't go into labor, nor have contractions. Instead, the child arises unbidden from her side, landing upright on his feet. Taking 7 steps, with lotus flowers blooming beneath where he walks, he comes to a stop and declares, "This is my last rebirth." They named him Prince Siddhartha, meaning he who achieves his goal. And he was the hope of the Shakya dynasty, who wanted this new prince, Siddhartha Gautama, to lead them to glory. So, when a wise man examined the baby and declared, based on body marks, that the child would either be a great king or a great religious leader, his father had a clear preference. He would raise his son in royal splendor, surrounded by pleasure. Siddhartha wanted for nothing. He wore fine silks and earrings so heavy with jewels that the lobes of his ears permanently stretched. His days were full of fine food, parties, good company, and pleasures of all sorts. He married his most beautiful cousin and had a fine son of his own, learning the joys of parenthood. But the prince also grew up isolated, never having been told about sorrow, sadness, illness, aging, or death. Then one day, he went for a fateful ride outside the palace grounds and was shocked by what he encountered. First, he met a sick man. Then he met an old man, and most shocking of all to him, he saw the terrible stillness of a corpse wrapped in a funeral shawl. In a single day, he'd beheld the suffering of humanity that he had been shielded from all his life. And only then, when he met a wandering ascetic walking along the road, did he realize that this was the path for him. Upon returning to the palace, Siddhartha renounced all his belongings, his possessions, his power, even his family, and left to find the answers for why people
So much for being
suffer.
the later.
Now, let's pause here for a moment, because I've seen your hand up since the whole miraculous birth thing, and I do know what you are probably saying right now. Matt, this doesn't sound exactly like history. And look,
yeah.
you are absolutely right. While historians generally agree that Siddhartha Gautama existed, actual details of his life are few and far between. We're not even sure whether he lived in the 5th or 6th century, though what we do know a little about is his times. Contrary to legendary accounts, the area probably didn't have a hereditary monarchy. Siddhartha's family were likely aristocrats in what's known as the Shakya Republic, a political unit that governed a part of what is now the border between India and Nepal. In that system, aristocratic members of the Shakya clan, like Siddhartha's father, would gather in an assembly and vote on matters of war, legislation, and to elect leaders. Though this radical egalitarianism among the upper classes did not extend to those lower in the caste system ruling India at the time, which does put an interesting spin on the legendary story of Siddhartha, whose religious preachings would emphasize equality, essentially bringing this elite egalitarianism to the poor. However, we know so little about the historical Buddha or the Shakya kingdom that all of this should be considered extremely speculative. So with all of that in mind, let's get back to the story. Siddhartha lived years as an ascetic, starving himself until his eyes sunk in his skull and you could see the veins on his skeletal frame. But this brought him no closer to the question of why humans suffered. In fact, he realized this was only the opposite extreme of his life in the palace. So, when a poor man offered him a bowl of rice, he took it. He would pursue a middle path, he decided, moderation in all things. And after wandering, he sat beneath a Bodhi tree and meditated for 49 days. And on the 49th night, as he teetered on the edge of enlightenment, that's when the women came. 3 beautiful maidens, moving with unearthly sensuality, danced around him in an endless circle, each passing their licentious dance to the other as they beckoned Siddhartha to get up and join them. Oh, but he knew them to be the daughters of Mara, the god of pleasure, death, and rebirth. If he joined them, the pleasure he felt would be illusionary and temporary. It would be a cycle of bliss, guilt, and emptiness. Heck, even the pleasure itself would be undercut by the knowledge that the high would lead to a low. So Siddhartha did not join them. Mara, furious, unleashed his army of demons to terrify Siddhartha out of his reverie. They clanged shields, fired arrows, and charged him with chariots. In response, Siddhartha calmly reached out and touched the ground to display his solidity in meditation. And in sympathy, the ground trembled in an earthquake that banished the demonic army, causing the horned beasts to flee in terror. And as the sun rose, the man who had been a prince opened his eyes, not as Siddhartha Gautama, but as the Buddha, the awakened one. He awoke from the illusionary dream of the physical world, its pleasures and its sadness, and he had had his great revelation. The answer to the question of suffering was the 4 noble truths. 1. Existence is suffering. Humanity was stuck in a cycle of death and rebirth, meaning an endless cycle of suffering. To live was to experience sickness, pain, and death. Even a comfortable life was an illusion, as every joy begets sadness when it ends. And every moment of happiness is also a moment of sorrow, since we know the happiness is fleeting. The world is always moving, and everything is transitory. 2. The cause of suffering is desire. We suffer because we desire things. Desire to gain them, to hold on to them, to mourn them when they are gone. It is the nature of the world for things to come and go, and it is our own tendency to hold on to them that makes us suffer. Desire being an unquenchable thirst. 3. To end suffering, you must end desire. And 4. The way to cease desire is to follow the Eightfold Path. Now, we're not going to go through every point of this, but these are 8 principles that can be broken down into 3 groups: moral behavior, self-discipline, and meditation. Directives that apply to everyone, but with a few stricter rules that apply specifically to monks. And as Buddha acquired all of this knowledge, sitting under that tree, he experienced the state of nirvana, where his desire was blown out like a candle flame. A state of peace where his mind no longer raced and he was free from worldly concerns. He could have stayed there, enjoying it forever, but he knew this was not his role. For he was to spread his insight as a teacher and ensure the whole world would be free from suffering. So Buddha arose from his nirvana, went to find his students, and the history of Buddhism began. And while I am not a Buddhist myself, while producing...
Yeah, nothing wrong with taking a little time to, stop, breathe, and figure out your plans, Can attest. Feels good. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed that one. I'll see you guys for part 2. Till then, see ya.